here, we'll the hour is 3 o'clock, and we will bring this meeting of the Delaware County Transportation Commission to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess we should call the roll. Might be appropriate.
Commissioner Fallman?
Here.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Here.
Commissioner Kine?
Here.
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Kevin Tucker?
Here.
And Chair Short.
Here. Okay, moving on to...
Director,
Yes,
for the record, if I may, Supervisor Gitlin, who was appointed in January to the Delaware Local Transportation Commission, has essentially resigned his position with the Transportation Commission for reasons not be known to us. So we will bring this item back to the board to see if there's any other willing participants from the Delaware Board of Supervisors who would serve their role on the Transportation Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Howard? With that, we'll make that note and move on to a public comment period. Anybody wishing to make public comments regarding matters either on or off the agenda and within the Commission's jurisdiction may do so at this time. However, the Commission is not permitted to act on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, election of a chairperson and vice chairperson. It's that time of year where we're going to possibly change seats. Is there any discussion?
Do we usually go back and forth in county and city? I would nominate Commissioner Howard for chairperson.
Second that.
Motion for Commissioner Howard has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah. Yeah. Do we need
Motion's been made and seconded. Can we poll the vote?
Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kine?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Chair Short.
Yes. And any discussion for the vice chair?
I'd nominate Commissioner Fallman for that position.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner Fallman. Would you mind polling the vote, please?
Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kine?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Short.
Yes. With that...
Could I ask again who was the second on that?
The
Commissioner
second was
Hemmingson.
Thank you.
yes. With that, we'll do some chair shuffling and then move on to closed session, which is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code 54-956.9. One case.
All right, looks like Director Layton, are we, we're going to move to closed session now, is that correct? All right, you didn't want to do this after the meeting? You think it's pertinent to take up now? Let's do that then. All right,
Probably want to take public comment on closed session items.
let's go ahead and take public comment on closed session items only. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to closed session. We'll be back shortly.
Sherry has been the one that has constantly had to remind me about closed session, or I mean public comment.
It's easy to forget, and it's really easy when you're on the outside. It happens all the
Yeah.
time.
Me too.
We're going in. Yeah, come on.
Okay, let's get on with it. We're returning from closed session, and there is currently nothing to report from the closed session briefing. We're going to go ahead and adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and consider the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on consent agenda items A, B, C, D, and E?
Move to approve consent.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Public comment on consent agenda items. Seeing none, we'll return to the board. We have a motion and a second. Can you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Fallman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson,
Yes.
Commissioner Keim,
Yes.
Kevin Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right, we're going to move to the policy and administrative section of our meeting. Item number F, which is the 2018-19 overall work plan. Director Layton?
We discussed the next year's overall work program, which is basically the work of the commission for one fiscal year. We discussed it in January. The TAC has been working on it since December. What items, how the whole work program comes together. Much of the work program is mandatory regular work that staff does on an ongoing basis. Some of the areas of the work program, however, are discretionary, and there are things that the Technical Advisory Committee, which is the city, county, public works staff, the harbor, a California Highway Patrol member, a Caltrans member, a transit member, and a member of the Yurok tribe, that's who constitutes the TAC. They come together and say, what is it that we need from transportation planning? This is about planning. It's not, particularly about, are we going to build it? When are we going to build it? So keeping in mind that this is only the planning phase. And so we include those required work elements. Right now, for example, we're doing a lot of transit planning that is mandatory. You have to update your short-range transit plan every 5 years, as an example. So we're working on some data collection this year. We'll initiate the short-range transit plan at the end of this fiscal year, so in a month or two. And then we will continue that project through next year, wrapping it up for the Robocoast Transit Authority. So an example of, it's a mandatory work. We really do have to do that short-range transit plan to keep transit eligible for funding that they desperately need. In looking at this, if you could just look to your table of contents, I'll go through that briefly. It's important to me that the Transportation Commission have an idea of the work of the commission for the next year. I had a commissioner ask me a few years ago, well, how do you know when you're authorizing an invoice that you should pay this? And this is the first step if you're authorizing invoices for next year in the work of the commission. So you see the work in the overall work program, you award a contract in the future that relates to some of this work, the invoices start coming in for the contract for the work that you've seen. So by the time we get to that point, the Transportation Commission should have a pretty good idea about what work should they be expecting if they're authorizing the payment of an invoice. It should be familiar to you in some way that, oh yes, I remember this is in the work program. We approved the contract with this consultant. Now I'm starting to see consultant invoices. So it's a long process. Right now, I'm actually working in last year, this year, future year, bringing everything together. And for much of the time, we're working in 3 years at once. The wrapping up the past, the in the middle of now, and the looking forward to next year. So under the long-range planning, this is, for the most part, standard work. You can see in your agenda packet today, we have completed the 2018 Economic and Demographic Profile. This is, the Economic and Demographic Profile is a comparatively inexpensive project that I get more thank yous from pulling together than any other work that we do. From just a broad base of the community, we need this data that's in the Economic and Demographic Profile. The Transportation Commission needs this data. It informs our regional transportation plan, but the whole community has access to the data because we need the data, and it's very helpful to understanding our community. It's been one of the things that has informed some of the work that Caltrans has done for the economic impact of a full closure. They've taken a look at the data that's in the economic and demographic profile. The last chance grade, going sort of backwards, the last chance grade, I'm not sure what work exactly we will do with the last chance grade for next year, but I've talked to John Driscoll about it, and he believes that we will need a placeholder. This year, we are sending out a letter to everybody in the community, so it'll be a public mailing to everybody, not through social media, not through newspaper, not through some of those very narrow. It will be an information document sent to the public that's the actual facts about last chance grade sent to everybody in the community who has a mailing address. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing this year. We may repeat that next year. We may find something different, more important to do. So the information about the last chance grade executive summary isn't as specific as it will become.
And Tamara, if I may interrupt, that might be a good thing. I know one of the things that Commissioner Hemmingson and Commissioner Cowan did on their December trip to Sacramento is talk to CTC about upcoming projects. And Highway 101 at last chance grade was one of those. I believe one of the requests, and Commissioner Hemmingson can correct me if I'm wrong, but was to invite commissioners up here prior to the May or June CTC meeting, where Caltrans potentially would be asking for funding to at least begin the environmental work, but to invite commissioners and the director here to Del County. Supervisor Hemmingson, I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
No, I don't have anything to add to it, but we did talk to Mitchell Weiss and indicated to him that we would like to have a couple of commissioners come up and put that invitation out there.
I'll be seeing him on Friday.
That'd be good if you maybe could get a hold of, or when you talk to him, if you could find out where we're at with
the
that.
two NorCal commissioners in particular were recommended to make that visit, Jim Arp and Jim, God, I can't even pronounce it,
Gilmedi.
Gilmedi.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. So we do need to follow up on that as a piece of the last chance grade work plan. Potentially.
Yeah, I'll check in with the project director about where we are on that schedule, and when something comes to the State Transportation Commission, I will work with him and with you to coordinate an invitation to invite those folks up. I'm not confident that we will have an item on the May or June agenda. I think Caltrans may be going down a different path on that, but I don't have the facts on that yet. So I think that's still being fleshed out right now.
Okay.
But I will keep that in mind before a
News to
CTC
us.
meeting to bring a couple folks up. And I'll work with Mitch Weiss on
Okay.
that.
No, I appreciate it.
So work element B is the overall work program. That's what we're doing right now. There's a lot of writing, development, coordination with the technical advisory committee. There's a review process through Caltrans. It comes back to me. We negotiate, or they may comment on some areas. There may be some requests for language change. They may deny the work program altogether. They may deny a portion of it, deeming that it's not eligible use of funds. We're having a bit of a challenge right now with the storm damage reduction planning work element that Kevin Church and I are working out, I believe, with the state. So I'll talk about that more when we get there. The information dissemination is the Informed Transportation Commission. I call it, that's having our public meetings, putting together the agendas, all of the, keeping the public and the Transportation Commission informed. The partnerships and planning agreements are about attending the Rural Counties Task Force, the North State Super Region meetings, partnershiping with our local agencies when needed, partnershiping with our North Coast Super Region folks when needed. So the website and crowdsource information is exactly that. It's maintaining our website and our crowdsourcing in that area of public information. That is going to be one of the focuses that I have in my presentation at the Economic Summit. Just to give you a heads up, I'm going to walk the entire group through posting something on our crowdsourcing website, so everybody will be in the middle of that meeting, standing up and stretching, getting out their phones, turning them on if they aren't already on, and going through step by step. It just takes a minute, but I'm going to walk everybody in the room through how to post a comment. And so my goal is by the time we leave, everybody will have posted one comment who has a smartphone with them on that day, and then they will know how to do it in the future. So I think that it will be a real help. And then they can train the other folks in their family, other folks who they know. The TIP program development is maintaining our transportation improvement program and our project representation. The transportation improvement program is basically managing our STIP funds, or State Transportation Improvement Program funds, and that takes care of our PPM. It also monitors our STIP-funded projects that we have right now. That's where that staff time comes from. The TDA, Administration and Fiscal Management, is basic office operations, maintaining our records, maintaining our files. The fiscal management has to do with audits for the reviewing the audits for Road Coast Transit Authority, but also our own audits. In this next year, we will have 2 audits. We'll have our performance audit and our fiscal audit. The performance audit is a document that takes a look 3 years back of the Transportation Commission's work and essentially assures the Commission and the public that the work that we commit to doing in the work program is actually done. It takes a look and makes sure the money is spent appropriately, that we have an appropriate call box ratio for transit, those kinds of things. But it's a huge file dump. They take a look. They are your assurance. That performance audit is your assurance that we are doing the work that we promised to do in the overall work program. And then the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, they essentially meet once or twice a year, and we have an upcoming meeting. I don't have that scheduled yet, but it's a small amount of work that's really important and a mandate. The Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies, or SAFE, is our call box system. Transit planning in this area is one of our discretionary areas. We could opt not to do a short-range transit plan, but that would be very unfortunate because it's a requirement to keep transit eligible. The storm damage reduction planning, if we can go to that, and that's 19 of the document. So I want to just go through some of that information with you. The concern that Caltrans has to date expressed is that our rainfall and our damage, while important, is not regionally significant. And that's sort of in a nutshell of summarizing the concerns that were expressed by Jason in our last TAC meeting. So I went to my colleagues and I sent an email out to all of the Rural Counties Task Force members. I have many, many responses back to them. I included a draft of this work element. I made some changes because I want this to be eligible work. This is important work for our community, and if you look at our rainfall data, with an average annual rainfall of 79 inches per year, we are by far the wettest in the state. Nevada County only has 63, so we are well above our second wettest county. We are also well above the number of rain days. We have 95 average precipitation days when Humboldt County has 78. It seems particularly dry down there. So in putting this water, rainfall, precipitation information in the work element, I'm trying to express to Caltrans headquarters in Sacramento that our rainfall actually is regionally significant. You can't separate a watershed. You can't take it in pieces, and that we need to take a holistic look at our community. We use as example some of the major failures we have had in the past. The work that we want to do with this, the roadway drainage infrastructure audit, will be really important to helping avoid the failures that we had last year by having a better understanding of what's under the road, what condition is that culvert in. So this is my current contention right now, is doing everything I can to make sure that this work is considered eligible for the RPA funding and not ineligible, because it's it's work that we really need to have in our community. So the county, the city, everybody's sort of going to bat to make sure that, to do everything we can. We cannot make sure, but to do everything we can to have this work be eligible for the RPA funding, which is how we have paid for it, are paying for it. The data collection, work element I, data collection and baseline data is a continuation of work that we're doing now. It's important to have this baseline data for our regional transportation plan when we update it in 2020. It's important for our grant applications to say, here's what our road condition is now, here's what our, how we're doing in this area of the community. So that's the baseline data. The systemic safety analysis report is match funding for the county, and the Caltrans information element I actually don't have yet. I included in the work program, but it's not something that we pay for. It's basically Caltrans letting us know what transportation planning work they're going to be doing in the upcoming year. So I'll receive that from Caltrans, I'm sure, within the next few weeks.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Questions from the commission?
I know it's a lot in a moment, but
But it was an excellent summary, and we appreciate it. And we do have the document in front of us, which will actually help guide the commission in the next year.
I really did enjoy that packet on all the demographics. I found that fascinating.
no.
And, I mean, I hadn't read anywhere else, so the fact that you did all of that was really...
Well, the Center for Economic Development at Chico does a lot of the work, but I must tell you, I spend a lot of time straightening things out with that document. I really do. They do a really good job with the information that they have, but it's also a bit staff time intensive too to get it right, because, and I've been doing it for
Almost
14
a
years,
decade, yeah,
10
plus.
years here, but I worked
Yep.
on it before then too, so I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with it.
The Local Transportation Commission has funded that document, basically for the community, for ourselves, because it's such a crucial piece of what we do.
No, it's truly helpful when we're taking a look, especially at our regional transportation plan update, but for other things along the way.
A lot of other things. That seems like such a useful tool. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and open it up to public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission. Any other questions for the director at this time? Okay, seeing none, let's, by consensus, approve and adopt this.
We're just moving forward.
We're just moving forward? It says
Yep.
approval process?
Yep,
Really?
yep.
Okay, that's fine.
I generally review it with the Transportation Commission before we get to the
Okay.
adoption point,
Okay.
because if you have some concerns, at that point, it's too late.
Well, it said by consensus. I just assume you want a consensus on that direction.
I do.
Okay. I think you have it. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on
Yeah.
with
We will come back and adopt it, and it will probably be a consent agenda item.
Got it.
Because we've gone through it so thoroughly now. So when we do come back and adopt it, it'll be a consent agenda item, most likely in April, maybe in May.
Okay, let's go ahead and with item number G. We have obviously our standing agenda item, which is last chance grade. We have a discussion from the commission on this item, or anything new to report from Caltrans? Yes.
Yeah, so I have a few notes from the project manager. The expert-based risk assessment, there's a meeting March 11th, on-site meeting for the assessment, and the plan is to have the report completed by May. The public engagement timeline, so looking at, May, June timeframe, to go over the results of the expert-based risk assessment. As Tamara mentioned, the mailer going out in the June, around June. Also, looking at a public meeting in July or August to update the community on the project.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions? Very good. Let's go ahead with the US 199 intersection Elk Valley Crossroad. I know we had another accident there. Is that correct, Director?
I don't have an accident report from that
From the
location at this
CHP
time.
at this time?
Yeah, I don't have an accident report from the
I
CHP
came in
at this
on
time.
the scene after it had occurred already, but it did happen not too long ago. So I don't know what kind of movement we could get, but my hope is that we could get some movement, whatever movement that might look like. You don't have to comment unless you want to, but go ahead.
Well, I did get some information. This board requested that I get some information about the project in Lake County.
Absolutely.
On Highway 20, there's a series of roundabouts. One of them is Highway 20 and the Nice Lucerne cutoff, which is a local road. So I took a look, and some of the information that I collected, just for comparison, the project was initiated based on the collision history. 31 collisions were noted in a 5-year period. For a point of comparison, 199, we noted 10 collisions in a 10-year period. So that's, six times as many collisions in a 5-year period. Traffic volumes on State Route 20 are double what you see on 199, which is part of why, originally it was initiated as a safety project, and through that process, we have to evaluate whether a signal is necessary. And so based on volumes and safety, it was determined that a roundabout was necessary. Also, in my research, I found that in 2008, Lake County Redevelopment Agency prepared a North Shore traffic calming and beautification plan, which called for a roundabout at that location. So that was, evidence of community support for the proposed improvement. So that was in 2008. 2011 is when the project was initiated. Also, just wanted to mention in the notes for the project, they mentioned that during the summer tourism season, there's additional traffic, and I thought that was one point of comparison between the two locations. And I just had a question about the Elk Valley multimodal corridor plan, and why we didn't consider this intersection as part of that plan, and it would be worth looking at some grant opportunities. That unfortunately the Caltrans offers grants, Sustainable Communities grants, to do corridor type planning, which just closed in February, so that's not going to be open again until October. But we do fund projects that look at corridors to evaluate, future conditions and look at what the community might be interested in doing. So I just wanted to mention those are some of the things that I found in my research.
Director Layton, you want to address the question specific to the multimodal corridor plan for Elk Valley?
I can. The multimodal corridor plan for Elk Valley, we developed that plan because there is an unusually high accident rate on Elk Valley. And much of that is through the whole corridor, so it made sense for that to be a corridor plan. The driving conditions and the road itself of Elk Valley is very different from that US 199 Elk Valley Crossroad intersection. Certainly, this is the first that I've heard that the Transportation Commission would be called upon, or that it would even make sense for us to be called upon to develop a plan for that neighborhood that would help move this project forward. I think that Caltrans also has a transportation planning obligation, and this is an intersection on the state highway. It's something that we could talk about with the TAC. It's something that we could potentially amend into our next work program year. I I'm not confident that the transportation planning grants that Mr. Tucker is referencing is the right vehicle to provide for such a plan. We do, however, have a huge amount of carryover for rural counties in this fiscal year, and we are going to be receiving a request for proposals probably in our meeting on Friday. I'm not sure where we are in the process of that, but we could potentially apply for funding for a plan for that neighborhood that could address this. I don't know, given the difference in accident rates when we look at Lake County and the resistance that we've had to date to make significant changes there, that a plan would actually tip us over into the yes, build something area. But it's certainly something that we could strive to do to add to the weight of information that we have. I'm hoping actually to add to the weight of information that we have through our Commonplace website, and some of that will happen over time. Some of it will happen in the Economic Summit. I think that in terms of public comments, that's a place to get public comments about opinions, and we need more people logging in to the Commonplace website, dropping a pin and saying, I have a problem with this intersection. So I mean, I'm a little bit stymied to hear that now we should have a plan for the state highway intersection in that neighborhood. Certainly we could do it. I'll take a look at that. I can take a look at that grant opportunity. What this grant is there are so many restrictions on the RPA funding that rural counties are returning their funds rather than being able to spend them. Now, I can assure you that Del Norte has yet to return $1 of funding, and I don't intend to. We work really hard to make sure that we spend all of our money on time. But when the restrictions become so narrow that you can't do the planning work that's really important to your community, like the storm damage reduction planning that we're striving to do, it makes for a challenging situation because the funding source eligibility becomes increasingly narrow. The interpretation becomes increasingly narrow at District 1, but more so at the state level, and that's why we have such a huge carryover. So we have a lot of carryover, $280,000, something like that. I'm just guessing on the number, under 300, but close to that. $300,000 that rural counties have given back to the state because they cannot use the money because of so many restrictions. So in addition to the normal general increase, year over year, we have an increase in that amount of money that's rescinded to the state. And then this year, we also had a community with a significant lapse in transportation planning, so that boosted the number up even greater this year. But if you look at the trend of rescinded funding, I look at the trend of that rescinded funding up and up and up and up and up every year, and I take a look at the challenges that we're having in getting our storm damage reduction planning, and I think, well, no wonder we have such a balance. But I can take a look at drafting an application for that, what I call leftover money. It's leftover RPA money. And see if we can put together an application, or should put together an application to apply for this area. The place to initiate that for me would be with the TAC, so I could put this on the TAC agenda and see if that's the will of the TAC that I move forward with that. And as far as I'm concerned, if the TAC says, yes, let's go do that, I will, gather the information I need and come back to the commission and start moving that grant application forward. There isn't any match funding. There's not, there aren't any real requirements. It's not a overly complex application. It's important to really state a solid case for your project because my colleagues are all very smart people. They put together bang-up applications. They're just an impressive group, and so.
Well, thank you for that report out. I know Commissioner Hemmingson did have his hand up. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Tucker, if I could, you talked about the two roundabouts on Highway 20, and one you said there was collisions, and the other roundabout was a beautification project. Is that correct?
Actually,
did you have any?
I was only actually talking about just the one roundabout. I didn't actually look at the other roundabout because it was the intersection of 20 and 29.
Right.
And based on the discussion we had, I think it was 2 meetings ago. Yeah, I think you wanted me to focus on that one.
Okay, yeah, I was confused, and that's why I was asking the question. I thought you were talking about two different ones. One was a beautification, the other one was because of accidents.
Yeah, so it was just that one location. The community had done a plan to look at improvements in the corridor.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you for researching that. You got one more?
Just wanted to make one more comment. I'd be happy to share with Tamara there are a lot of examples of grants that have been given by Caltrans to look at improvements on the state highway system. I can think of a handful of them in different communities, Eureka, Oric, Fortuna. I can't think of any specific ones in Del Norte, but there are a lot of examples, and it does make a difference. When we are looking at improvements, it's always nice to have something that we can show people that, this has been vetted by the community. This is what the community is interested in seeing in this location. So I think there's always, I may be biased because I'm a planner, but I think that, planning documents, have value. And so that's what I wanted to bring up.
Well, it's appreciated, and thank you for doing so. I know with this will continue to be a standing agenda item. Obviously, it's a major concern for the community. The offer, I think, is just great, and I think working with Caltrans and with our director's tenacious pursuit of this, we will hopefully get some momentum moving at some point in time. But we appreciate the offer for a new direction, maybe, to tackle this. You want to fill us in real quick, Director Layton, on the Economic Summit, or do you feel you briefed us enough on that?
I will give it, all of you have probably seen my Economic Summit
Yep.
presentations. They're usually pretty short and to the point, and this one will be of a similar nature. We will be talking about Commonplace. I'll give a brief update on some of the current work that we're doing with our partners, some work that the county is striving to do, and the city and their Pebble Beach Drive pedestrian improvement project. We'll talk about briefly the Elk Valley Crossroad as an example. When we pull up the Commonplace website, folks can drop pins wherever they choose. They can even do more than one.
It'll be a good audience for that discussion to occur. Okay, let's talk about the call box performance update.
So our call box, I have started receiving reports this year about our call box system that I had not seen in 9 years, 10 years, and that we have a fully functioning system.
Wow.
Now
Wow.
we are spending more money on our system maintenance than we have in the past, so there's a cost to having every call box running all of the time. But I do get reports sometimes if the door is open, if somebody, goes up, opens the door and doesn't shut it, or if they use the call box and don't shut the door all the way. I mean, there's all kinds of little sensors on those call boxes but I get reports now. I would say 70% of the time we have a fully functioning call box system. And
awesome.
I've just, it is costing us more money, so we aren't building up that income, but I just wanted to let you know that it's running pretty smoothly right now, and it's costing us a bit more, but I think it's important to have those boxes working. And part of it is getting new staff with the folks who do our maintenance, and really focusing them on coming up more often. It's expensive,
Yep.
We're out of the way.
Excellent, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move on with commissioners' comments and reports. Commissioner Short, do you have anything to report out at this time?
Just a real quick note that February 3rd was the date of that wreck on Highway 101 and 190.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. Commissioner Hemmingson?
Nothing.
Commissioner Fallman?
No, Chair.
Commissioner Tucker? Okay. Commissioner Kimes? All right. I'm just gonna take note. Both Director Layton and I have had some back and forth email discussions with Caltrans specific to the location on Highway 101 and the Dollar General. We had a head-on collision. I think David Morgan was finally able to locate that with CHP. There was a report from the Smith River Neighborhood Watch that there was actually 2 accidents there within the last month. I believe only one has actually been found within the CHP's record. I just want that location to continue to be top of mind as we approach our tourist season. I've seen more than one close call now with people locking up brakes as they're turning into that section, and they just flying at 60, 65 miles an hour, even though they're not supposed to. They're locking them up and having to go sideswiping around the road. And you'll see those skid marks every time. There's just increasing amount of rubber on the road now from where people are flying off. So let's continue to pay attention to that if we could. The other one is, and I don't have the full details on it yet, but the accident last week at Kings Valley and Highway 101, the head-on collision, 3-car collision there. I'm not very familiar with it. Darren, do you have much on that?
It's in Fort Dix service area. I know they had it, but I don't have particulars.
Okay, that's another one of these interesting intersections, crossing areas on Highway 101. Continues to be maybe problematic.
Well, if we do a planning document, we will certainly be addressing
All intersections.
that whole area.
No,
Yeah.
it's appreciated. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and move on with item number 8, which is action on the recommendations of the Policy Advisory Committee. And we're going to adjourn as the Policy Advisory Committee and convene back as the Local Transportation Commission, and by poll vote, approve and adopt any action taken by the Policy Advisory Commission at this time. Do we have a motion on the table?
Move to approve and adopt.
We have a motion, a second, public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Please pull the vote.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Keim,
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson,
Yes.
Commissioner Fallon,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right, thank you all for your nomination. I appreciate being chair. Look forward to a great 2018 with you guys. It's a great team to be on, and we'll see what we can do to recruit a replacement member from the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors.
I think we can probably handle that.